We are still discussing security and the Anambra governorship elections. And we have in the studio Abdulrazaq Alkali, the Executive Director, Organization for Community and Civic Engagement. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome. So yes, the conversation is ongoing about the Anambra election. This morning we're seeing stories about the federal government's proposal, I would say intention to declare a state of emergency in Anambra State given the circumstance. We just heard from the National Commissioner of Voter Education and information from INEC, Festus Okoye, and he said, well, it's not within the purview of the Independent National Electoral Commission to take a decision on that, but as a member of the civil society organization, from what you are observing, would you say that there's a need for that in that state?
Well, actually, for me, there is no need for state of emergency for now, because we know INEC, they have a track record of conducting election in conflict zones. They have done that a number of times. They have done it in Maiduguri, that is Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa State during the reign of Boko Haram. So it's just a matter for the INEC to deploy the same strategies they have used in the previous election in conflict zones to make sure that Anambra election is not different from those kind of elections. So the issue of state of emergency is not a good idea because militarized elections are not good for our democracy.
Right.
So they should allow INEC to continue to follow the process and make sure this election is conducted on the same date, 6 November. So I'm not a fan of supporting, state of emergency because militarized elections are not good for our democracy.
Okay. Now, with the security situation presently in Anambra State, many will be of the opinion that it will affect the credibility of the elections. What do you think, about the whole situation?
Well, actually, it's unfortunate that the kind of, violence and security threat that is coming from Anambra State. As he said, Anambra State INEC office has been attacked just about some months ago, and part of the non-sensitive materials were destroyed. And they have decided to now start storing in the Owerri, that is Imo State zonal store, which is a good idea. And the only thing, we have to restore the confidence of the electorate. INEC is responsible of conducting the elections. And this conflict and violence is not as a result of any INEC activity, but rather I can call it the responsibility of the politicians, because these same people, the thugs that have been perpetrating this violence, are at one point supporters of the same political elites. And now they have started reaping what they have sown. So it's not the responsibility of INEC to provide the security, but rather instead of the government to declare state of emergency, I will prefer to see government, mobilizing resources in terms of security to make sure that the deployment of the security is strategic. Strategic in such a way that will prevent the occurrence of violence and, and the confidence of the electorate so that people will come out on November 6th and cast their vote without fear or any intimidation. That's the responsibility of the government. And political parties, of course, they should support the citizens to participate in the election. This kind of the way they are behaving, blame games, saying this and that, I think it's not helping matters.
Okay, now, a new commissioner of police was just recently deployed to Anambra State. Don't you think that is a move in the right direction?
I think it's the right move because what we need at the moment is to make sure that the security is adequately provided for Anambra election. And now the security apparatus in the country, they have leverage because Anambra election is just one election at the moment. We are not having election across Nigeria in which we can say we have scarce, operatives, security operatives. So they can have all the mobilization they can do to make sure that they put those people in the strategic places to make sure that they have provided the required security for the free and fair election to be conducted.
Now, how significant is the election in Anambra State, given the fact that we have had, some groups in the state give orders, like, say, sit at home, and you find for fear or maybe for being, in compliance with that order, you would find that people are observing and all of that. And this same group have, attempting to make sure that the election does not hold in Anambra State. So how significant is it for that election to hold for the Nigerian democracy?
Well, actually, it's going to be a trial for our democracy. We must make sure that Anambra election is held on 6 November. And it's the responsibility of the Nigerian government to provide the necessary security. We have 30 days now before the election. I think it's a good time for the government to deploy security operatives to make sure that they build the confidence of the electorate so that people will come out and vote in the election. If not, the IFOP or any other group that are calling for the sit-at-home order and trying to prevent INEC from conducting this election succeed, then it's going to be a stain on our democracy. And we don't know what is going to happen in 2023 because this is going to be a trial for us, and all the stakeholders must make sure that this election is conducted and with full mobilization of the electorate to participate. If care is not taken, it's going to, put a bad stain on our democracy because people will now start losing confidence in the electorate and the institutions that are supposed to provide security for them to come out and vote during elections.
Now, given the situation in Anambra State, it looks like there is a need for election observers to be there. So what kind of election observers will be required in that place?
Well, I think in Nigeria we have citizens-led observers group that are very good, that are always very, very willing and ready to take part in election. I believe Yaga Africa Watching the Boards are going to be there in Anambra State. The same thing, TMG, Transition Monitoring Group, are going to be there. So this kind of group will really provide people with information, with update on what is going on there. And they will do all that it takes in terms of monitoring the process and making sure that the election integrity is also observed. Because INEC, they cannot take advantage of the situation to organize election that is not credible. Even the security agencies, they have to do their part. So the election observers we have in Nigeria, more especially watching the board by Yaga, the TMG, I know these are credible people. They will observe the process right from the primary election, and they have done that. And this election on the November 6th is going to be also observed, and they are going to observe all the processes. Where they found there are problems, they are going to report it to the relevant stakeholders, and many Nigerians will also know this election, is it credible or not? So we have the right group to observe the election, and I believe they are going to do a fantastic job because that's their specialization.
Now, there's a dilemma here. While government on its part try to make efforts to provide all the security apparatus necessary to ensure safety, for voters and officials of INEC and to ensure the smooth running of the election, you have on the other hand opposition parties who are skeptical about these arrangements, suspicious of these arrangements. Some are already saying like this is an opportunity for the ruling party to rig elections and all of that. How do we, ensure that there is confidence on the part of the opposition parties, even as we pull through with this process?
Well, I think it has become like a habitual thing among Nigerian political parties to accuse one another. And I think it's everywhere, it's all over the world. Political parties, they don't come along. But for this Anambra election, I think they have to look at it from other angle. All the things that are happening, maybe that are generating some concern and contention among the political parties, are things that are happening because of necessity, because of this insecurity in the zone. The movement of the non-sensitive materials to Owerri is as a result of the attack against the INEC office in the Anambra state. Then, so they have to consider that it's not everything. Even the statement made by the Attorney General yesterday, I think it has to do with maybe they have started thinking they didn't rule out of declaring state of emergency. And I believe we have done elections under state of emergency in other states. And I think it didn't affect the outcome of the elections. We have state of emergency in 2011 in Borno State and some other part, and still the party that is not in the ruling party won their elections. So it's not something to worry. But of course, they have legitimate concern when they have seen other things that maybe we are not aware of. They can let out their grievances. And INEC, they have other processes of listening. As he said, they are going to have a stakeholders meeting with all political parties to listen to their views and, of course, to inform them about some of the decisions that are going to take. So I think that kind of platform is the right platform for the political parties to express their grievances. And if they have any evidence of wrongdoing against their own interests, they can present it and also let Nigerians know, not just a rhetoric and other innuendos that can create more tension within the electorates.
Okay. So what role, have you played as a community and civic engagement organization?
Well, is the question...
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, our responsibility is mostly educating the electorates, making sure that they have their PVCs, permanent voter registrations. For the ones that are coming to age, more especially the millennials, we mobilize them to make sure that they have their registration under this continuous voter registration. And we also inform them that the responsibility of the citizens is to participate in the elections. That's the only way you have to elect your leaders, the chosen leaders. And they have to do it with a conscience by looking at what are their philosophy, what are their priorities, not the way we used to do in Nigeria, collecting money or under the influence of corrupt politicians, and in which some they were turning young people into their personal militias, and that's what is really happening. The people in Anambra State or in the southeast, the ones that are taking this kind of actions against state institutions are also part of that problem, because at once they were supporters of some politicians and now they are turning against them. So they find it difficult to control them. So it's part of our responsibility always to educate people, to also organize like a town hall meetings where we invite political leaders elected, mostly elected, to come and attend a gathering with electorates. And we normally establish procedures that you cannot, if we invite an elected officials and he agreed to attend, then we set a ground rules for the participant, the electorate, that you are not going to ask him for any money or any favor, personal favor, and you are not going to abuse him.
So many, particularly millennials, would say we have been voting for quite a while and we don't get to see any changes over and over again. I know some people who have said, some don't even have the permanent voters card, they've never voted at all. Do you have any new initiative, that will help, draw these young people, to vote, as a social responsibility?
Well, you are right. It is quite challenging, convincing Nigerian electorates to continue, coming out in each and every election cycles, casting their vote without getting the desired result. Result in the sense that, dividend of democracy, right, where they can have improved health services, education, water, agri, and the rest. People, I find it difficult to see what is the value of this democracy. That is why if you look at the trend of our election, the voter apathy continues to grow. In the last election, what we have is just 34% of the eligible voters came out in 2019 to cast their votes. It's very, very worrisome, because when you have people, eligible voters, started sitting at home, they don't even care about the democracy. So once you have people that are anti-democracy, they can easily topple the government, and they will have no people, to round and support them. So this is not good for our democracy, and we find it difficult to engage these young people. But we are doing a lot in terms of building their own capacity, you know, making them to be also part of the community, sensitize other people, because we have this kind of huge deficits in terms of political and civic education. And politicians are using that as an opportunity, you know, to do whatever they like, because people, they don't understand how the political process and democratic process is working.
Now, let's just maybe digress just a bit. You know, there are those who have raised concern about INEC's transmission of results. We've heard all from the National Commissioner here who have said, well, INEC has the constitutional powers to determine how to conduct election. But we have those who are saying that, look, we cannot go ahead and legislate over transmission of results in Nigeria electronically because we have issues of network and all of that. Where does your organization stand as far as that argument is concerned?
Well, actually, we are part of the group that really advocates for the electronic transmission of results. And we do that because we believe with electronic transmission of results, it will reduce the level of discrepancies we have and the electoral fraud, where election results are being changed over this kind of process before recording into main election sheets. So the electronic transmission of results will provide a much more safety for the process. Once you have your result, transmit it electronically. Then the idea of other people to change it or to do some vote from one party to another or from one candidate to another will not even arise, because already the result is in the INEC system. And I don't know, INEC a number of times they have said it. They have the capacity and capability to do that. I don't know what is wrong with our legislators for not saying that they will not allow INEC to do that, even though they have a divided house at National Assembly. House of Brave, they are in support of the INEC to conduct electronic transmission of result. It's only at the Senate where they said they agree with that, but they leave it as an option. Of the option, they said it has to be approved by the NCC, Nigerian Communication Commission, an agency that it has nothing to do with election in Nigeria. And in fact, in our Electoral Act, there was never a time where NCC is mentioned. And secondly, they said with the approval of the National Assembly. While INEC is supposed to be an unfair and independent body, it does not require any institution to say this is how you are going to do your things. And INEC, they have said it a number of times, they have the capability and the capacity to transmit election electronically. Then why can't they allow INEC? And through research, we have seen that majority of Nigerians buy into this process of transmitting election result electronically. It will reduce the instances of inconclusive elections, because that's where the loopholes are. Once cancellation has started taking place after the conduct of the election, if you have your results electronically already transmitted all over the country, there is no way somebody can come and start cancelling results. So this is something that they have to allow INEC to do it. Even though I had the Festus Okoye, he said that they are not going to do it in Anambra, but what they are going to do is to make sure that the result of the polling unit are uploaded to INEC server, which is almost similar to, because when they do that at the polling unit, it is going to be very, very difficult for other people to change it. And that's what we are.
So how do you see that, helping with the process in Anambra State, looking at the whole concerns about safety and security and all of that?
Well, I think it will go a long way in terms of improving the credibility of the election, because once they have started doing that in Anambra and they have uploaded, the result, polling unit result to INEC server, it will go a long way. Even if maybe accidentally there is some attacks against materials, that means the result sent to the INEC server, it has saved. So it's something that I am really in support, and many Nigerians are in support to see that INEC is using innovative, technology in order to improve the quality and credibility of our election. I think there is nothing wrong. We are just hoping that the National Assembly is going to allow it to happen and to remove all these bottlenecks they have put through with approval of NCC. NCC is nothing as far as election in Nigeria is concerned. They have their own responsibility of coordinating communication activities in Nigeria, but not election.
All right. So what are some of the areas of concern, in our legislature as far as Electoral Act and the way elections are conducted in Nigeria are for your organization, the community and civic engagement? What are some of the areas that you feel like there is need for some legislative attention in this Electoral Act?
Well, actually, the Electoral Act, for me, it has a number of beautiful provisions. It has never been that good for Nigerian elections because we have a provision that granted INEC to have their money 1 year before the election, before the national election. They must have their money in their account 1 year before the election, which is enough for them to have all the preparations in good time. It's there in the law. And it also extend the time where political parties can submit their candidates, about 150 days, which is enough for candidate after submission to INEC. They can go for reconciliations. They can go for reconciliation with other, grieving candidate in their party, because that is one challenge of our democracy. We don't have good internal democracy in our political parties. All the time when elections is around, you can see people, grieving people, cross-carpeting from one party to another.
Right.
That's the failure of internal democracy, because we don't have them. All the political parties are like a strong main, driven political parties.
So are you suggesting that we need to checkmate, candidates running from one party to another?
Well, it's not good for our democracy, because that means people, they don't have ideologies, they don't have any principles. Because political parties are supposed to be built based on principles and ideology. But in Nigeria, you cannot say which party have any ideology or principles that they build on and they stick to. People are just cross-carpeting, just like how many times within this cycle of election, there are people, big politicians in Nigeria, they have cross-carpeted from one party to another, not more than twice.
And at this point, there are those who say, well, parties, these two prominent parties that we have in Nigeria, they are a failure. And so there is a need for some kind of third force and all of that. Let's get your own opinion on the issue of, the third force that we have for now come to know, or I would say, people in political parlance have now come to recognize. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, it's not a good idea for us to have just two political parties, despite all the wars they have created for this country, but still people are sticking to them. And I think it has to do with the resources. People, political parties can only be, driven with the resources. And all other political parties, they don't have resources. And people are always looking to political parties that have power or some influence. And the only parties that have power now, they have governors, senators, and reps, are just 2 or 3 political parties, including some of the, maybe AFGA and the rest that have some regional, coverage. So it's not good for our democracy. There is need for the like-minded politicians to start reorganizing, building new political parties based on ideology. But I think it's not an easy job in Nigeria, because even the people that we look at them as role models, they have been talking about the issue of transparency and accountability in governance. But when they started joining politics, you can see they are joining the same old wagon of these political parties that have created too much trouble for this country than solving our problems. So it's something that we have to do it over the time, and we have to engage in constant advocacy and engagement with stakeholders to appreciate that there is need to have more political parties, more platforms that are really genuine and willing to do good for this country.
All right then. Well, thank you so much, Abdulrazaq Alkali, Executive Director, Organization for Community and Civic Engagement, here with us in the studio. Thank you for your thoughts on the program this morning.
Thank you so much.
Hope to have you next
Thank
time.
you so much.